Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Primis Propositions podcast, here the Lion Roar. I'm Matt Brown, Head of Proposition, and I'm joined by Nikki Hemmings, Proposition Manager. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, Matt, and hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hear the Lion Roar.
So today we've got a star guest. We have a Head of Protection Distribution. We've got Jamie Page from the Exeter. Hiya, Jamie. How are you?
Hello both. Hi, everyone. I'm fantastic, thank you. I'm really good and really looking forward to talking to you on the Lion Roar. Now, I have got this one thing, though, to say. Every time I say the Lion Roar, I am expecting a lion to roar. That is the case, right?
Yeah, let's just test it. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, actually, I'll do this, shall I?
Brilliant. Excellent. Okay, so Jamie, before we get cracking and get away from them lion roars, can you tell us a bit about yourself? How long have you been in the industry? How did you end up at the Exeter, etc.?
Yeah, of course, and thank you both again for the opportunity of being on the Lion's Roar today. So I'm Head of Protection Distribution at the Exeter. Previous to the Exeter, I've been in the industry for coming up to 30 years. Actually, it might even be a little bit over 30 years. And I know you don't believe that.
Absolutely not, mate.
No, that's it. That's what I was looking for. Thank you, Matt. I know for over 30 years, and look, my passion is the protection industry, and always has been. And for me, it's about us as a provider and advisor communication and how we start to grow this market. So for me, being in the protection industry, yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I've got a lot from it, and working with the likes of yourself and other protection distribution partners is what I most enjoy.
Excellent. I still can't believe 30 years. I'm still trying to process that, Jamie. So
thank you, Nikki. Yeah. It's clearly started when I was very, very young.
Obviously, yeah. Right, let's get into the questions then, because I know that's what you're here for. So let's start with a very to the point one. Why do you think there's still such a gap when it comes to income protection?
Yeah, okay. So firstly, I think we need to recognise the current environment and the market that we're in. We're still feeling the after effects of the pandemic, and I believe we will be for years to come. And there's still news articles about the pandemic now. So there's a huge amount going on, not only in the UK, but across the world. And protecting, your income, our incomes, probably isn't the first thing people want to think about right now. But if the last few years have taught us anything, it's that things can drastically change in an absolute instant. And it's crucial that we're all safeguarding, and you as advisors are safeguarding the futures of the customers. And now it's positive to see an increase in new individual IP policies last year, which obviously shows that there is a growing focus with more and more of us talking about it. But there is still a lot of work to be done. So the Exeter, we recently conducted some research called Challenging Times. Now, we asked 2,000 employed and 2,000 self-employed workers about their current health and financial concerns. The research is available on our website, but let me just give you one stat for a moment. 83% of them from that research told us they didn't have income protection. So although we begin to move in the right direction, our job, Nikki, is far from done.
Absolutely, yeah. It's stats there. So do you think it's actually seen by brokers as being a difficult market to discuss protection?
I mean, we only need to look at the headlines on a daily basis. It might seem so, but what it does say for me is there's never been a better time to protect your income and clearly your lifestyle. And although I'm saying lifestyle, this doesn't need to be lavish or lavish goods. This is simply securing you in your home that you've worked years and years to be in and to build. So protection conversations can feel uncomfortable for a lot of customers because they don't want to think about the worst happening. Look, none of us do. None of us want to have those thoughts or have those conversations. But that's always been the case. Nothing has changed. And if anything, there's more of a heightened awareness of the real risks that people face and how circumstances can actually quickly change. Now, there are a lot of misconceptions with insurance, and I'll just pick on a couple of those. But affordability, the cost of insurance is one. Now, again, sorry, I'm going to be quite statty, but the average cost of an income protection policy, now this is with a 2-year claim period in 2021, was just £24 per month. So from our research, again, please have a look at the research, but from our research and in comparison, we spend almost £38 per month on takeaways and £47 per month on the latest smartphone. Now, I appreciate, and I know what you're all thinking, these are tangible items. You use them, you've got them, you feel them, you enjoy them. But these are throwaways. Therefore, you could suggest and you could argue, therefore, that IP is affordable. Some kind of insurance is affordable. Now, one of the other objections that we hear on a regular basis is that I'm okay, I have savings. And that'll be a client objection. So it's okay, I've got some savings. Now, 39% of working adults over 18 years old in the UK save less than £100 in a month. So 1 in 7 save absolutely nothing. And I'm sure this will start to change and deteriorate as we see costs increase. So nearly 1 in 4 are having to dip into their savings just to cover ongoing current monthly living costs. Now, when you take into an average our claim statistics during 2021, it was just under 2 years. So 101 weeks was our average claim duration. So average claim length in 2021. So do your clients, could they confidently say they have enough savings to pay their monthly bills month after month for 101 weeks, so just short of 2 years? You also need to consider, the current waiting list. This is one that I actually always come back to. Current waiting list for NHS. Now, I think NHS and the services are fantastic, but actually we're currently in an all-time high for their waiting lists. So when you're in need, action needs to be taken quickly. Otherwise, if you've got health problems, you can deteriorate very, very quickly. Now, 44% of those who access private services use their savings to pay for healthcare. Now, that's quite a big stat. 44% paid for private healthcare, while 15% took out a loan or borrowed money from family to cover those costs. So clearly savings are simply just not enough to be able to afford those monthly costs. So sorry, Nikki, it's a very, very long answer to say ultimately, there's never been a better time. I believe there's never been a better time to discuss protection with your clients.
Absolutely.
Some epic stats there. I mean, I've just written down 37 quid on takeaways. I think people probably spend more than that, thinking about some of the people in my network. But, I think...
Agree. I did see your eyes rise when I said that stat, Matt.
They did, yeah. Yeah. But, £20 being the average cost, Jamie, I think people think it's a lot more expensive than that. So, I think definitely get a review with a protection advisor and have a look at some of this stuff and cut back on your takeaways because it's good for the waistline as well.
Couldn't agree more.
So I guess, sort of follow-up questions to some of that stuff you've talked about there. What do you think are going to be the biggest opportunities within the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think I'll break this down into 3, if I may. So for me, over the course of the next couple of years, and maybe even shorter term, 6 months to 12 months, we've got self-employed, we've got consumer duty, and we've also got the mortgage market and remortgage market. But let me go through them individually. So a definite opportunity will be self-employed. So again, I'm referring back to our research. So apologies that this is being quite statty, but our research showed that only 29% of self-employed workers had life cover, so some form of life cover, and just 17% had income protection. Now, these are self-employed, so pretty alarming considering that they won't have access to employer sick pay or added company benefits. Now, self-employed workers could likely be more susceptible to an income shock than employed individuals. So whether that's because of new contracts fail to materialize or simply unprecedented nationwide events hit the economy, which is what we're seeing and what we have seen. So 46% even said they're worried about the loss of income due to illness or injury. So again, automatically straight away, this presents an opportunity for advisors, your advisors, to start educating and having those conversations, potentially with new clients or with existing clients that have been seen previously. So there's one opportunity I see. The other is consumer duty. Now, this will, of course, has been and will be a big focus next year. And I think presents an opportunity to review existing processes to get in contact with existing customers. Now, the good news is a lot of your advisors are already doing this, and they're delivering a very high standard of service to their clients, putting customers at the heart of everything they do in terms of the customer journey and also the sales journey. But it may be more of a case of just simply documenting or evidencing the work that your ARs are doing, as opposed to adapting new ways of working. But look, just a couple of thoughts really that some of your advisors may consider. So how do you communicate currently with your clients? Now, that might be pre, during, or post application, an ongoing dialogue for the life of that plan, which I think now is going to be really important. Another one to consider is, how do you support your clients post sale or post a claims? And what is it they need from you as an advisor post that claims? So as we know, with income protection, you may need a claim for 6 months, 12 months, but that policy can then be reinstated. So it's there for the client again if they need it. Do the products that your advisor sell, is it fair value? Is it doing what is intended for that client's outcome or for that client's circumstances? And I think another point relating to what I've already mentioned is about, how often do you check in with your clients? Has their circumstances changed? Is their insurance now fit for purpose as it originally was when it was taken out, either for personal needs or business needs or even for mortgage needs? And also, I think related to the Exeter, certainly with our real life plan, is there certain protection products that aren't being recommended to clients, but could be signposted to potentially specialist areas, again, supporting a good, positive outcome for that customer. So this is not extensive by any stretch of the imagination, but supporting clients due to the sort of sales journey or at the appropriate touch point could also present a really good opportunity for advisors. And finally, and I will keep this brief, Matt, finally, mortgage and protection opportunities. So according to the Halifax, the average age of a UK first-time buyer is 32. Okay, remember that stat, it's 32. I spoke about the Exeter claim stats a moment ago, where on average it pays out just short of 2 years, so 101 weeks. But the average age of the Exeter claim is 37. Okay, so that was our average age in 2021 for a claim was 37. So this means that the point where the average first-time buyer, 32, remortgages from a 5-year fixed rate product is also the age they're likely to find themselves unable to work, struggling not only with mortgage repayments, but wider bills and also rising costs of living. So I hope that makes sense. Average age mortgage 32, average age of the Exeter claim in 2021 was 37. So consider again those touch points within those clients, and also the solutions that's in place is ensuring that any potential opportunity to have that protection conversation with that client is so important.
Yeah, agree with everything you're saying, Jamie. Glad you touched on consumer duty, which is very topical at the moment. And I guess, you've talked a lot about the mortgage market, the remortgage market, and we know, particularly in the mortgage and protection broker world, that's where a lot of the opportunities for protection would come from. But there are other potential opportunities, aren't there, in the market? So can you give us some other examples of where there might be opportunity?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Matt. And I think for us as protection providers within the current market, we do focus on the mortgage market or the remortgage market, which is where a lot of the statistics come from. But also it's what we hear from your advisor community on how busy they currently are within that mortgage transaction and that that process. Now, the rental market is one that we often don't talk about and could be missed. So that continues to grow. And there are 4.5 million renters in the UK, and they also need cover, some form of cover, to protect their essentials. So for many, renting is no longer seen as a stepping stone to buying their first home. You know, buying for some is just not a viable option anymore, even for the sort of middle-aged or 30s, and I'll just keep it to older professionals. And with a lot of tenants having to spend more on rent than they would on mortgage costs, it's crucial that we start advising and consider the options for those tenants and not just focus on the mortgage market. So I do think the renting market presents an opportunity for us all.
Absolutely, that you know, it's a massive chunk of the market, isn't it? And one not to kind of miss as well. I think the $1 million question here for you then, Jamie, is what do you see we can do as an industry to help close the income protection gap?
Yeah, I think that's a good one, Nikki. But do you want the long answer or the short answer from me? Don't respond.
Go.
I think we all have a big role to play in this. I really do, and it will be a challenge, but it's an important one that we all need to accept. So for advisors, I think it's about using this new heightened awareness that customers have, to give reassurance that through the value of your advice, and I think that's really important, the value of your advice, you can protect them. You can protect their families and also their lifestyles. And you can use the current circumstances to give very real and personal examples to your existing clients and also to your new clients. Now, there's still a lack of awareness and education around income protection, and this creates barriers and I think common misconceptions. Now, these should be tackled up front by explaining things like, how far, so some of the things I've already mentioned, how far your client savings could take them, asking them if they have considered how stressful it could be, and we've all been there, how stressful it could be, a mountain debt would be. Checking how confident they are in what sickness cover. So again, as employed, we take it for granted, but what is your sickness cover? What does the employers provide? And making sure you discuss the product's flexibility that can suit the client's needs, so the outcome, but also importantly, I think their budget. So that's advisors. For us as the Exeter, we have a big role to play, and so do the industry, but for the Exeter, we have a big role to play. We are the 5th largest income protection provider in the UK, but look, we never rest, as we need to help support you as a network, but also your advisors. So we have toolkits dedicated to income protection with on-demand CPD. We have tools, we have sales aids. We also have research and insights to help with conversations. And some of the statistics I've mentioned today will all be within our CPD area. We also have a dedicated on the road, on the phone distribution team who can talk you through our income protection solutions and things like our income risk calculator, which creates a downloadable report for you to send directly to your client. So it is client facing for them to understand the risks that they've got if they don't start to safeguard their income. And I think we also need, as a wider industry, to continue work and have greater awareness, and teaming up with the Income Protection Task Force as an example, and other industry initiatives is what we can do collectively, not just as providers, but advisors and also networks. Don't get me wrong, it's a very exciting time where we're consistently seeing improvements, we're consistently seeing industry collaboration, and we're also seeing better conversations happening every single day. So although there's still a lot of work to be done, it feels as though we are moving in the right direction where we need to take it for the benefit of our consumers.
Perfect. Thanks, Jamie. Some useful stuff in there. And again, totally agree. So I guess, as a sort of final question to finish up today, if you could summarize the discussion and everything that we've just talked about, what would be the key takeaways you'd give to our listeners?
Yeah, I think for me, there's possibly 3 things here. So the takeaway would be to review your client bank. So that's more existing, but review your client bank. Start to segment those customers into the different opportunities. So that might be employed, self-employed, renters, that might be mortgage, that might be remortgage, and that might be customers with dependents. So start to just review your client bank and ensure that you target these clients with the appropriate facts, tools, which will then ultimately deliver the best possible outcome for those particular segments. So I think there's one thing which I would want everybody to take away from this call. I also mentioned earlier, which I think is my second thing, about the tools available on our website. I'm going to say our website, but actually it is a market, a protection market. There's so many tools and there's so many enhancements that are available to a lot of people. So you can access by visiting, certainly within the Exeter, by visiting the Exeter, the-exeter.com. And there's lots of toolkits, but in particular with some CPD to help educate and support the advisor understanding and also knowledge. And finally, please use us, our dedicated distribution team. They're fantastic. They won't only just give you a view from the Exeter, they'll also give you a perspective on the market. So to proper manage and business develop you in terms of where the opportunities are within the market, talk a little bit more about objection handling, where the opportunities are within that client segmentation. But we would be delighted to come out and speak to your advisors, whether that's face to face or whether that's on the phone.
Brilliant. We'd be delighted for you to go out and speak to them as well. So yeah, I would absolutely recommend people get on board and do that. So the last thing I'll ask you, Jamie, because you seem to really get into this at the start, is do you want one last go of the lion roaring?
Yes, please.
Go for it. Excellent. Thank you, Jamie. It was great to have you on the podcast today, and we'll catch up with you soon. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, both. Really good. Thanks a lot.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.